Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. With the Oleksandr Usyk and Derek Chisora fight now official for May 23rd at the O2 in London, there's a number of questions about this fight, the matchup, and for the fighters themselves. Oleksandr Usyk has a number of questions that he needs to answer for a lot of fans to believe in him. Obviously, he is a darling of the hardcore boxing fan, but Chisora too, he also has some questions to answer because with 9 losses, some people are going to write him off, but at the moment, he's on a high. Some people believe he's a top 10 heavyweight, that he's resurgent. But is he? Can he handle the movement of an Oleksandr Usyk? But we'll come to these questions, and then later in the video, a few comments from the official press release for this fight. But starting off with Oleksandr Usyk, who some people see as a guy that is just not big enough for heavyweight. The former undisputed cruiserweight champion who won the World Boxing Super Series back in mid-2018, then fought Tony Bellew at the back end of that year. That was a defense of all of his titles, then moving up to heavyweight. Since then, we really haven't seen a lot of what Oleksandr Usyk can do at heavyweight. Injuries have sort of derailed his plans for 2019 for the most part. Only the one fight, and that was against Chaz Witherspoon. And a lot of people weren't that impressed with what they saw. Usyk had been out the best part of 2019. He came in, he looked rusty. He didn't look like a world beater. And I think a lot of fans, on the basis of that performance, were a little on the fence about him, and some even wrote him off. So this fight with Derek Chisora is very important for Oleksandr Usyk for several reasons. I mean, even though he is the taller man with the longer reach against Derek Chisora, some people don't see Oleksandr Usyk as a proper heavyweight. They see him as a guy who's come up from cruiserweight that is going to struggle. And obviously with the injuries that he's been carrying, since he's come to heavyweight, he's picked up a number, he has been nursing him. It's delayed this fight, an elbow injury. They wanted to make sure it was right. Can he handle the rigors of the heavyweight division? Can he handle a big puncher like Derek Chisora? Can Derek Chisora stop Oleksandr Usyk? There is a vein of fan thought that believes that Oleksandr Usyk is coming into this fight to get stopped by Derek Chisora. Some people see Chisora as resurgent from his past year. So Usyk has it all to prove because at the moment he is the WBO mandatory challenger. That's courtesy of his super champion status from cruiserweight. So he's coming up. He's effectively skipping the queue because of his accolades at the weight at cruiserweight. And now he has a title shot waiting for him if he can beat Derek Chisora. This is effectively a fight that he's taking in the interim because the unified champion Anthony Joshua is currently busy. He's going to be facing another mandatory challenger in Kubrat Pulev. So there is scope here for this event to be Oleksandr Usyk's coming out party at heavyweight, because if he comes through a test like Derek Chisora, a guy who is big, strong, can punch, and a lot of people are high on right now, and if he makes Chisora look average, if he's able to look good, beat him up, outpoint him convincingly, even maybe stop him, that's going to go a long way with fans to help build a potential fight at some point with Anthony Joshua, which could be later in 2020 or maybe 2021. It sort of depends, does Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury get through their fights and have an undisputed fight? But I do think that this fight with Oleksandr Usyk and Derek Chisora is the opportunity for Usyk to really cement his status as a heavyweight, someone who can be viewed as a legitimate threat at the weight. Because at the moment, obviously, there's a lot of doubters. The Chaz Witherspoon performance didn't help. The injuries, the inactivity, and apart from his accolades at cruiserweight, he hasn't done anything at heavyweight yet. So I guess, fans are right to be skeptical. But at the same time, a lot of fans have written off his skills, remembering that Derek Chisora fights best when there's a guy standing basically in front of him. Derek Chisora has questions to answer to in this fight because people believe that he is really on the up and up. Some people consider him a top 10 heavyweight. And when you look at the past year and what he's done, I'm not sure that it warrants a top 10 status based on beating a faded David Price and a faded Artur Spilka, and Senad Gashi too was in his last year in the body of work, and he struggled against Senad Gashi. That was a guy that didn't really want to engage with Derek Chisora, but he was moving around the ring, making it difficult for Derek Chisora. Chisora couldn't really cut off the ring. He was made to look ineffectual against Senad Gashi. So if a guy like Gashi can give Chisora problems with movement, Chisora couldn't catch up with him, couldn't do much of anything with him, and part of that was down to Gashi and the negativity. How is he going to deal with a guy like Oleksandr Usyk, who is regarded as one of the best movers in the game? And he doesn't just move, he keeps you working, turning. He will be landing all sorts of shots from all sorts of angles. Derek Chisora will no doubt try to want to make Oleksandr Usyk fight in his wheelhouse. He will try to bait him into some sort of, trading and stand in front of me and let's go and let's make this a war, that sort of stuff. But that is not Oleksandr Usyk's style. Don't expect to see that happen. And if that's not going to happen, you're probably going to see Derek Chisora struggling on the moving front. There's a question he has to answer there. And I know that there's a lot of people that like to say, well, previously he wasn't training properly, he wasn't motivated, yada, yada, yada. But, this guy has been a pro for over 10 years now. And he's had a title shot and he's been beaten by a lot of top opposition. Derek Chisora hasn't truly proven that he's a world-level fighter. Sure, he's a top 20-ish, somewhere around there, maybe closer to top 15 after the past year. But a guy in Chisora that's come up short so many times, I'm not sure where the confidence comes from that all of a sudden he's changed his ways and become a world beater. Some of what's been happening with the marketing of him, that he's a reinvented fighter, it's just that, it's marketing. And when you consider he beat two faded guys and also Senad Gashi, who's top 100 something, I mean, this really is the best reinvention of a fighter that I've seen in recent memory. And especially a guy with 9 losses who's now going to be on pay-per-view with one of the best cruiserweights in history who's making his move to heavyweight. So for me, I see this as an opportunity for Usyk to look good. But obviously, can he handle the power? What if Derek Chisora does catch up with him? Is Oleksandr Usyk going to be able to handle the weight of the punches? And that's something that Derek Chisora has questioned about Usyk, that can he actually take a heavyweight punch? And with the inactivity and obviously the injury, I guess there is a question mark about what Usyk will be doing. How good will he look after all this inactivity in the past year or so? So I'm not writing Derek Chisora off completely, but I do favour Oleksandr Usyk to win this one. I do think that his movement, the punches, the angles are going to be too much for Derek Chisora, who has shown that he struggles with movers. That is his kryptonite. And the Ajit Kabayal fight from 2017 is a really good example. And I know some people like to say, oh, well, he wasn't motivated, yada, yada, yada. But, the fact is he was outboxed on that night, and he could be outboxed in this one. But if he does catch up with Oleksandr Usyk, manages to hurt him, he could possibly get him out of there. But I'm not expecting that, but there is a chance that that could happen. And I know a lot of supporters of Derek Chisora are sort of sectioning off an earlier part of his career, but to me, some of that does come off as excuses as well. If fans of another fighter said that a whole bunch of their fighters' losses from earlier in their career didn't matter because they weren't motivated or training properly or whatever, I think people would really lay into them. So, I think people need to just keep it in perspective. I know some people are high on Chisora right now, but what has he done lately to prove that he can handle a guy like Oleksandr Usyk and what he can bring? I would like to know. Please tell me if you have an answer for that. But I want to get to some of the comments that both have made now. On social media first, David Hay says, Derek War Chisora has been written off by the experts. On paper, it's mission impossible, but in reality, War Chisora is preparing to bring something Usyk has never seen before. He's a wrecking machine who will bulldoze his way to a hometown victory on May 23rd. And you might note that they said that about Murat Gassiev ahead of the World Boxing Super Series final. Remembering that Gassiev, while he might not be as bulky as Derek Chisora, is effectively the same height and possibly even a bigger puncher. There's a lot of heavyweights who've testified that Murat Gassiev is one of the hardest hitting punchers that they've ever faced in sparring. And also his former opponents say that he can really crack. But in terms of Derek Chisora, this is a quote from Haymaker Boxing. Derek Chisora, I'm going to remind him exactly why he hid in the cruiserweight division and also get revenge for my boy Tony Bellew. Hashtag Usyk Chisora. And getting to the press release, so Usyk says, boxing in Manchester in 2018 was an amazing experience. Now I get to do it in London at the famous O2 Arena, and I can't wait to fight in front of the British fans once again. As a cruiserweight, I reached the highest heights as undisputed champion, and now I'm following the same path as a heavyweight. I expect a real test in Chisora. He's strong, tough, resilient. I recall being an amateur and watching his fight with Vitaly Klitschko. It seemed so big and far away. Now I am myself taking a fight against Chisora. I'm working hard in my training camp to show a spectacular performance on May 23rd. Dear friends, I will see you soon. And Chisora says war is coming. Usyk reckons he can step up and survive with the big boys. He may be the undisputed cruiserweight champion of the world, but on May 23rd, he will find out what it really feels like to be hit by a real heavyweight. He is coming to my backyard. I'm going to remind him exactly why he hid in the cruiserweight division and also get revenge for my boy Tony Bellew. Okay, so that's part of that previous tweet that I read out. Eddie Hearn says this has the potential to be one of the great O2 nights, a heavyweight blockbuster that can only be full of drama. Usyk, who has become a UK fan favourite in his own right, did it all at cruiserweight, becoming undisputed world champion in just 15 fights. Now he attempts to do the same feat in the glamour division with the big boys. Has he bitten off more than he can chew with Del Boy, who has consistently proved the doubters wrong and become one of the toughest, explosive heavyweights in the game? Anything can happen on May 23. Drop everything and don't miss it. Those are the statements of the fighters and Eddie Hearn, the promoter. So this fight, May 23rd, I'm looking forward to it because it is a proper test at heavyweight for Oleksandr Usyk. And if he can get through that, as I say, it's all there for him. And he builds his profile spectacularly, and that would obviously build towards a fight with Anthony Joshua, which would also be held in the UK. So some of what's happening here, Chisora as the opponent, this is to help build his profile. But can he pass the test, or will Chisora upset the apple cart? We shall see. But drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.